guys, for today's video I want to show you how to cut in a fabric and how to sew this basic expensive skirt design with a front slit. In this video I want to show you the step-by-step procedure on how to cut a pattern in a fabric and how to sew this skirt. So let's get started. So the first step or procedure that we should need to do is to cut our pattern in a fabric. So the following materials that we should need is our skirt pattern, tape measure, tailor chalk, and scissors, and also our ruler. And also for our sewing, we should need a thread, pins and needles, and also our main fabric, which is a Katrina cloth. So the first step that we should need is to cut our pattern. So for our pattern, so we have our slit in the front. So first we need to cut this pattern in the center, so which is our darts, and this is the center which our slit located. So we should need to separate them. So first we need to pin first our pattern in our fabric. And also pin also our second panel pattern for our front patterns piece. And also let's put all of these our seam allowance. For the slit allowance, mark 0.5 half inch of allowance for our slit pattern. And also for our waist part of our pattern, half inch allowance for the waistband. And also for our hem allowance, mark 2 inches for the hem allowance. And also same procedure, make half inch allowance for the slit pattern, for the slit part of our skirt, and also half inch allowance again for our waistband. For the side seam allowance, mark 1/2 inch allowance for our side seam for our skirt. And also mark also for our hem allowance 2 inches. Then for our slit, mark 5 inches from the bottom part of the skirt pattern. Mark 5 inches for the desired length that you want to have if you're going to put a slit. And also same part for 5 inch allowance. Then also mark also for our front dart. So next, our back pattern for our skirts. So same procedure as for our front. Pin first the pattern for the fabric. So let's press it. So after pinning the pattern to the fabric, so we need to mark now the allowances that we need to add. For the side seam, mark 1/2 inch allowance for the side seam of the back pattern, also in our front pattern. And also in the bottom part of the skirt, we mark 2 inch allowance for the hem. And also for our waist, mark 1/2 inch allowance for the waistband. For the zipper allowance, mark 2/2 inch allowance for the zipper allowance at the back. Mark 2/2 inch allowance for the zipper. After you finish marking all the patterns in our fabric, so we need to trace now the darts at the back. To to trace the darts, use ruler to trace the darts. So we need to remove first the pins in order to trace the pattern. So we need to trace this at the back, at the wrong size part of the fabric. Trace the darts. Use rulers or any kind of measuring tools like L square or meter stick. So this is the part where our darts located after tracing. So that's it for our pinning and tracing the patterns in the fabric. After pinning all our patterns in the fabric, so we are now going to cut our fabric. To cut our fabric, we need to follow all the mark that we are putting our fabric in cutting our fabric. So let's go. After you are done cutting the fabric, in our back we should cut 2 pieces of back pattern, and in our front we should cut this in a fold. So that's it for our step number 1 or procedure number 1, cutting the pattern in a fabric. So we will now proceed for sewing the fabric. So the materials that we need is also 2 pieces for the back, first panel for the front, and also second panel for the front, and also our waistband. So the first steps to sew is we need to sew first the darts. So this is the darts. So we should first sew the darts. So to sew the darts, this is the center of our mark of our darts. So we should need to fold this and sew in the wrong sides of the fabric. So we need to pin first in order to have accurate sewing the darts so that the fabric will hold and behave. So first we need to pin first in order to hold the fabric. So this is the starting point where the waistline, and also then down to the desired length of our darts. So let's sew the darts. So for sewing the darts, we need also needle and thread. So follow the step. So after we done stitching the darts, so we need now to lock our stitches. And cut the thread. So remove the pins. And then look at the result from the front of your skirt. So in order to have a beautiful and clean stitches of darts, so we need to press this and iron. So this is now look like our darts. So after we sew the front darts, we will now attach or join the first front panel and the second front panel to each other. So we will now pin first this panel. So we will now first pin first, and then after we pin, so we will now mark the location of our slit. So this is the location of our slit, which is 5 inches from the bottom of our skirt upwards. So let's now sew. So sew from the waistline up to the midpoint of our height of our slit. So let's now sewing this by 1/2 inches allowance. After we're done sewing, we will now going to proceed for our side seam of our front and back skirt. So we will now first pin again the front
side seam and the back side seams together, wrong side. So pin first the front and the back side seam of our skirt. And after we're done pinning, we will now sew our side seam with 1/2 inch allowance. So let's now sew our side seam. Wrong sides to wrong sides. And we are now finished stitching our side seam. So after we stitching our side seam, so this is now look like our side seam. So this is our side seam look like after we stitching and pressing the iron. So now we will now proceed for the attaching our waistband. So in attaching our waistband, follow the steps. We will now first fold this and then sew this edges, this end of our waistband. Sew this with a 1/2 inch allowance. So we will now sew this. Okay, so cut and also sew again this part. So after we stitching all of this, we will now slice this because we will now turn this inside our fabric in order to have a beautiful and clean stitches. Follow the steps like this. So this is gonna look like when we're going to turn in the stitches. So this is gonna look like our waistband. And then from the bottom of our waistband, we will now going to fold this 1/2 inch again. We will now going to fold this. So after we done stitching our waistband, so our waistband is now look like this. Our waistband is now look like this. So this is our finished waistband attaching. So this is now look like our waistband. So after you stitching all of this, all the darts, all the slit, all the side seams, and also all the waistband, and also all the hem, so we will now going to attach your zipper at the back. So I have now attached my zipper, my invisible zipper at the back. So that's it for today's video, for all the steps that I teach you from the cutting the fabric and sewing our fabric. So this is now the finished basic expensive skirt design with a front slit.